Well, you guys probably didn't join this to listen to me ramble about my basement. You probably joined to hear from our presenter, Steve, from Identifor. I had the opportunity to kind of see what they're doing. What was that, a few weeks ago, Steve?
It was 3 weeks ago, Dustin.
3 weeks ago? Man, time flies. And I think that his presentation is going to be pretty informative, and they've done some pretty cool things. So with that, Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you. Again, attendees, if you have a question for Steve, throw it in the chat. We'll make sure we get those in.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And I first want to thank Dustin for inviting me. And I have a lot to cover, so I'll be going fast. And oftentimes, my heavy Brooklyn accent gets in the way. If it does get too much, please let us know, and I'll go back and cover what I missed. But I'll do my best to make sure that I cover as much as I can during this time. But if you would like, feel free to contact me after this presentation if I could be of any help to you. Okay, thank you all for being here today. I want to go through this quickly, and I don't want to spend that much time on my background, but just to put a couple of things up here so that you can understand a little bit about who I am, what I bring to the table. October 1st of 2020, this year, there was a pretty big celebration. It was an all Zoom celebration for my 45th year in the area of not just special education, but in the area of transition. So I'm pretty proud of that, but not as proud as the last thing on my curricula that I put up here. And that is, I'm a parent of 3 children. 2 of them have cognitive disabilities. All 3 are adult children, and one of them is very significantly impaired with a cognitive disability. So the reason I don't just come here as a civilian or a backbencher or somebody who doesn't really understand what it's like to be a parent of kids with cognitive disabilities. So I don't just wear that rubber bracelet, if you will, in April. I live it every day. Having said that, I think—
Hey, Steve, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but maybe just kill your video to see if that helps with the audio, the webcam part of your video.
Okay, hang on.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Let me see how I can do just
down at the
that.
very bottom of the Zoom window, it should say, got it, cool, thank you.
I hope that's better. I just got to get back to my place here, and I think that the best—
Sorry for
that's
the
okay,
interruption.
that happens. I think that the best way to frame this discussion is the starting point that we need to really look at. And once we have a starting point, then we can see how we can work towards reaching, how we can fulfill this this challenge that we have. So the starting point is that we have to ask ourselves, what's a purposeful life for a person with an intellectual disability? And truthfully, it's the same purposeful life, or the same definition of a purposeful life for anyone, whether they have a disability or not. One of the things that in every and again in the top 3 is that meaningful employment is something that everybody seems to agree, or most people seem to agree, is imperative for a meaningful life. So it's not just employment, but meaningful employment is really something more than that. So it's not just a job, but something where someone can really feel valued, they can be fairly compensated, they can be welcome, they can feel as though they're part of the team. And it's much more than just somebody doing rote kind of work, or something that they're really not that connected to. Part of the problem that we have in working with our population is that we don't really understand or know or have a good handle on what somebody with autism or other mental disabilities may like to do, and things like that. We just don't have a clue because we're not able to get at that information.
Hey, Steve, your audio is we almost can't hear it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't.
Seems to be better when, for some reason, when I'm streaming. So I'll just stay here. Go ahead.
All right.
I'll keep an eye
Okay.
on it.
I'm not sure. I haven't had this problem, but I'm not sure what it is. Is that better right now?
It is much better right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll
Go
look at
ahead. I'm
you.
sorry.
No, that's okay. No, it's not your fault. So what I wanted to say was part of the problem in understanding the situation is really to try to figure out why we're not able to really understand our population better. And the reason is that traditional assessment has been a very big problem in dealing with our population. And these are some of the reasons why because someone is not very self-aware, or we only know what we know and have limited experiences, we just can't capture the typical information that we do from neurotypical people. And we're not able to really have an assessment tool that's biased free. And as in almost all of the assessment tools, they're either very open-ended or they're based with standardized testing bubble forms and things of that nature. So the question now becomes, how do we match job seekers with autism and also other intellectual disabilities with companies that are searching for specific workers? In March 2020, this past March, we were considered to have full employment. The Bureau of Labor Statistics said we have full employment, but then came along COVID, as you all know. And soon after that statistic was released, the Bureau of Labor Statistics since that time has not been able to give us an exact number of available jobs. But I can tell you, I don't know if it's 15 million lost jobs, 30 million lost jobs, 10 million. It's certainly nowhere near what it was before the pandemic hit. So how do we plan for when things start to loosen up and open up again? Well, the first thing is that career planning for neurotypical or neurodifferent population has to begin with accurate assessment. That's the most important thing that we need to understand. Before COVID, people on the autism spectrum, they were the ones that were most in demand of all of the different disabilities. They were most in demand for employment. But that was pre-COVID. Things have changed dramatically, and it's quite frustrating because in the past, during the best of times, this past March, most of the jobs that people with neuro differences would be relegated to were one of the 5 Fs. And the 5 Fs are filing, folding, food, flowers, and filth, janitorial types of stuff. So even during the best of times, these are the areas, for the most part, most of our young people have found employment when it has been available. Problem now is that with COVID, things have really changed because more and more there's going to be automation. There's going to be cutting costs, increasing efficiency, the less contact that there is. It's obviously going to be safer for the workers, and if it's a retail establishment, for the customers as well. And the areas that the digital tools are going to be most relied on are going to be in the areas that have been the largest source of employment for our young people. And those are the ones that are going to disappear and may never, and likely will never come back. And these are the ones that we've usually found, the 5 Fs. To make that point a little clearer, this is the latest information that has been released. And these are the 7 most common jobs that have been held for people with intellectual disabilities. And as you can see here, that more than half of them are in food preparation and in janitorial services. And the rest of them fall into, for the most part, fall into the 5 Fs as well. So those jobs were pre-COVID. Those were where most of the jobs for our people were, in these areas. And now they're suddenly gone. So the question then becomes, how can we prepare our young people, our teenagers, our transition age students starting today? Well, the first thing that we can do is we have to change the transition plan for different reasons. And even with virtual learning and hybrid learning or whatever type of learning that there is right now, schools are still required to provide transition and to follow the IDEA plan. Everybody, and I've talked to Dustin about this, every program says they're person-centered. Everyone says that they use strength-based assessment, but at the end of the day, when I ask for specifics, they really are not. So the first thing that we have to look at is how can we make any roadmap for our young people to be as person-centered and as strength-based as possible. So we have to just keep in mind that the jobs that we have had as the areas for our young people, since those are going to be the ones that are likely going to be falling by the wayside, we have to find jobs that are going to be robot, automation, and AI, artificial intelligence proof. Winston Churchill has a famous quote, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And I think that the important thing that we have to really look at is not putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound here. We really have to look at the long view. And what I mean by that is building and scaling something so that it's not just one person at a time, but it's really a movement for many people. And, we really need to reset things in a way that neurodiverse at work has much better results than it has in the past. And that leads up to Identifor. So let me tell you a little bit about our company. We've been around now for 6 years, and we have 3 dimensions to Identifor: career direction, meaningful employment, and 24/7 support. And I'm going to go through it really quick, but before I do, we really change things. We really flip the paradigm. And we do that by not just knocking on doors and saying to an employer, let's try this young person out at a job. But instead, what we do now is we flip it and say, these are the strengths that a person has. These are the interests that they have. What types of work do you have where they could provide value? And the first way that we do that is with career direction. And what's important in understanding what we do in in our career direction is that we use a crowdsourced big data analytic behind the scenes situation. And what we do with that is by having people just playing innocuous video computer games on devices, on PCs, on anything really that they can get Wi-Fi. What we're able to do is we're really able to look at real strengths in different specific areas that I'll talk about in a minute. But what makes this very, very unique is this is the first time where we came out with the world's first platform that allows people to have career assessment through a game-based medium. And that's what we're able to do. And one of the reasons is we know that most people on the spectrum, especially boys and young men, we can't get them to get from playing games. We figured out a way that we could leverage their interest and find out ways that we can get information that would be helpful for their future. So what we're doing now on the back end, while people are playing 74 games, and hopefully we'll get to 100 before the end of 2021, but with the games that we have, we're able to measure on the back end while people are playing these games, executive functions, multiple intelligences, and we also gamify the John Holland career code or the RIA set code. Each of these gives us, we believe, much more information that's more reliable in helping people to figure out what jobs might make most sense for them in the future. In addition to that information on our colorful dashboard, we're also able to give specific career suggestions that we feel would be a likely fit for that person. And this is what our dashboard would look like. And once we look at the different suggested career areas, if one looks interesting, they're all hyperlinked to the ONET online website. That's something by the Department of Labor. It looks at hundreds of different career areas, and it breaks them down into granular ways so that we could look at what's the technology a person's going to need to know in that field, what's the best way to help prepare them, what accommodations are they going to need, what coursework will they take, what supports are they going to need. In addition to the games, we also have something that gives us a better assessment of the person as well. or helps to the assessment as well, because I always say that we're data driven, but we're not data dependent. And what I mean by that, we also include different types of 2 different surveys that have been proven to be very, very valuable as an offset to the collection of the data that we have from playing the games. And one of them is is an executive function survey by George McCloskey, one of the leading thinkers in the area of executive functions. And what this is essentially, it's a way of looking at it's a situational analysis. And everybody who works with that young person, and that young person themselves, if they're capable, will then fill out a 33-question survey that asks them to evaluate that person in these different areas. Once that information is completed, it's aggregated, it's sent automatically to the team leader for that person's supervisor, and then we're able to look at commonalities and differences as well. And one of the things that has proven very, very helpful in the past to many people is to look at differences. So for instance, if everybody says that this person seldom always needs prompting, and one of the teachers or somebody else who works with that young person says they don't see that same issue, once in a while they need prompting, but not all the time, we could then ask that person, what is it that you do that maybe we could try to be more successful in reaching that young person? Second survey that we have built into Identifor is one that we designed with Virginia Commonwealth University's Autism Department. And we designed it specifically for Autism Speaks, who supports Identifor in what we do. And what this does is, this is the first tool that looks at evaluating how well somebody does in activities of daily life. And as you can see on the right side of this slide, some of the things might be safety at home, might be travel training or being able to get around the community, handling their personal finances, and things of that nature. So both of these surveys are also included in the Identifor platform. And with all of this information, we're able to really enhance that career discovery process, because we're able to really see where that person's strengths lie and match them to a company or an organization that is looking for somebody with those specific skills, abilities, and interests. One of the things that Identifor is built around is looking at people with differences, not as a medical model, but in a strength-based approach. The reason I have this slide included is these are all Olympic athletes, the highest level athletes on the same Olympic team, same United States Olympic team. And you could see that obviously the sumo wrestler isn't going to be a top end swimmer, just as you could see a gymnast isn't going to most likely be the person who's best at sumo wrestling. So you could see here that we have to start looking at not a person's deficiencies, not a person's deficits, not a person's IQ or what they're not able to do, but we're starting to flip that and look at what they are able to do and work around that. So part of the issue here is that, yes, we could find a great job for people. We do it all the time. It's helpful not for everybody, but for lots of people who have used our Identifor game platform, we've been very, very helpful in opening up doors and other kinds of opportunities for them. But the one thing now that we need to also take a look at, especially with COVID, we really need to take a look at the social emotional skills that the new workplace, and what I mean by that is the post or the COVID workplace, are going to really, really need these types of abilities more than ever. And these are the areas in which our young folks, our cohort, really struggle. So what can we do to help them? Because getting them the job is it's very, very difficult. But once we get them the job, then what? So how can we help with soft skills that are going to be more important than ever? And I say this a lot, and every time I discuss it, people at first, they say, "No, it's impossible." Then when you think about it, you probably agree as well. Most jobs have between 10 and 12 steps. That's the easiest part of employment for our population. It's the social and the navigation parts that are much, much more difficult for our young people because they have problems in self-regulation. They have problems with social blind spots and the hidden curriculum that every job has that they don't necessarily learn and they're not really successful at. So without those key foundation skills, these socially significant behaviors are going to be something that's going to affect the person from getting and keeping a job. There's lots of obstacles that get in the way of employment. So it's not just having a perfect match for a job, but there are what I call pain points that every person with a disability runs into. And what we have to ask the employer is, how can we help that person do best at their jobs? One of the things that I also want to point out is that oftentimes people get very excited about Identifor being such a great tool because we can get a perfect match in some cases for somebody that we never even thought of before. My own daughter is a perfect example of that, but that's a story for another time. If you're interested, I could tell you that when we have more time. But the point here is, what happens if the supervisor says to my daughter, Melanie, come back from your break in 20 minutes, and she comes back on next Wednesday or Thursday? She's not going to keep that job for very long. So we have to look beyond just the data points. And that's why we develop something that we call Identifor's Companion. This is Abby, and she's a 24/7 companion that's like a life coach that sits on a person's device. And it could be a person's phone, or it could be a person's tablet, could even use it on a PC or a Mac. And essentially what it does is it's an AI-based live avatar that we're able to ask questions to, and also use a very sophisticated calendar on the back end that unifies and unites everything to help a person during the day. Autism is forever. Most learning disabilities are forever. We think that when a person graduates from high school or whatever training, post-high school training, we think that they need less supports, they need less accommodations, but because the state no longer provides them for free, we usually need more rather than less. So we have different types of support that we're able to give with our Abby Companion. And as I said before, this is what it looks like, this middle panel. This is what all the panels look like, but the middle panel is the one that you could just bring her up and ask her many, many different kinds of questions about things at home, at the job, things at school, maybe questions that arise in the community. You could ask things like, how do I introduce myself? What's aggressive behavior? When is my next break? How do I make pasta? How do I ask somebody on a date? And on and on and on. And she can answer over 1,000 questions that we have her populated with. And if she doesn't know those questions that are asked, if they're asked enough time, we then put Abby back into the studio and we get her to record and answer new different types of questions that people may have. Here are some of the splash screens and some of the other screens that we have for the companion. I encourage everybody to look at, check us out on the, both on the iTunes store and also on the Google Play Store, to really have a better understanding of what we do. And I know Dustin was saying that a lot of the folks that are here today might want to know a little bit about the back end of what we do. Abby is the first human avatar that's been used. We use a very, very sophisticated NLP engine that's conversational. And the original companion had more lines of code than the original space shuttle. So it's pretty sophisticated, especially now that we're at the 5.1 or 5.2 iteration of this particular part of our platform. We have lots of future, lots of enhancements that we have that coming up, more games. As I say, we'll be rolling out quite a few more. Some of them might even have eye contact and emotions that will be evaluated. It'll be integrated with Alexa and Google Home. We have some IEP integration aspects of our platform. I encourage you to look at IdentiforEdited.com to check them out. And one of the things we're talking about is decreasing prompt dependence, which is one of the biggest obstacles and problems with our young people, is that they need constant prompting to do certain things. What Abby does is she does the prompting rather than a parent, rather than a job coach, rather than a teacher. Abby does that prompting. What we're looking to put into our platform is after a certain number of times that Abby is asked the same question, she'll come back, she'll come up on the screen and she'll say, you've asked me that question 5 times or 6 times before. What did you do the last time to make this problem or to solve this problem, make this problem go away or to solve this problem? Because without that attention to stopping and to thinking what the problem is, there's no way that they're going to be able to learn this for the long term. We also have other kinds of enhanced companion abilities that we've been talking about, and lots more stuff that we hope will be coming out in the near future. And the one thing I always fail to remember, and I stick this in to remind me, is that everything we do at Identifor, everything I describe to you as quickly as I can, is free. And there is no charge, there's no advertisement. We don't do anything but anonymize the data of the user, but everything is paid for by the founders of our company out of their own personal savings. I encourage
Steve, you have a
everybody to
question.
go to, hang on one second, because I encourage everybody to go to IdentiforEdited.com, get started, sign up, and find out what's possible today. And now I'm more than happy to stop and take any questions that you might have.
Sorry, I was about 30 seconds.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
So we had a question from someone that said that they work with young adults on the spectrum that are typically college educated and really looking for more of a professional type job in an office setting. Is this something that Identifor can help with?
Yes, this is really the group that we've been testing our platform with most has been the ones who are more higher functioning, is one of the cohorts that we've been testing Identifor with. So it's really the middle impacted and the less impacted, the higher functioning, formerly known as Asperger, that yes, we've been finding great success with them, not just with the Identifor games, but also with the Abby support as well.
Can Abby be customized to each individual? Is that how it works? Or is it, can you talk to that a little bit, just about the customization of the responses based on person? And
the more that a person uses Abby, the more that Abby gets to know that person. And what I mean by that is, since it's artificially intelligence based, the more alarms that are set, the more times, the more medication compliance kinds of aspects that a person uses in the app, the more predictability, the greater the predictability is. However, we're also able to modify our companion piece to fit any type of agency or organization, but obviously that part's not going to be free. But we are able to do that. So if a company or an organization, a school, for instance, has certain kinds of needs where they would like to support a person on the spectrum or any of their workers, because this isn't just for people with disabilities, lots of different people are using this right now. So we're able to make that customization as well.
So are you guys a nonprofit? And how do you offer this for free?
Yeah, so the best way of answering that is that we have a very interesting business model. Our business model is everything is for free, and for people with disabilities, it'll always be for free. Our founders, Kung Do and Laurie Rickles, are very known in the autism community on a national and on a local level. And they have a son, Benjamin, who's on the spectrum. They needed to have a tool like this built for Benjamin. And once they built it, they, as they do with other things that they've done in the past, is they offer it to everybody who could use this free of charge. So
it's amazing.
That's how it works, is they give it away.
That's amazing. We have a kind of a follow-up question to the professional job seekers. Do you see the like 20-plus-year-olds engaging just as much as younger users?
Yeah, so that's a fair question. We do quite a bit of testing on Identifor. We're almost at the point where we certainly have enough gameplays that we're doing all different kinds of testing. But the point that I wanted to make was right now there's been over 2.2 million gameplays of Identifor. And we're able to, the data science that we have keeps getting updated with the game algorithms. And what we're able to do is make certain kinds of predictions that we know are going to be valuable. And this is really for all different age groups of people. And when we do our testing, it's oftentimes the control group is usually 16 to 21 or 22 because that's the transition age. But for anybody that can play video games or I should say computer games, anyone who can play these games, you'll be able to use our tool. We've had people as young as 8 years old, and someone just told me recently, sent me an email telling me that their son loves it. He's 7.5 years old. And the point is that from those gameplays, a dashboard, sophisticated dashboard gets built, and we're able to look at many, many different aspects of that person so we could help their planning even at an earlier age than when they turn transition age, which is generally 14 to 16, depending on each state.
Yeah. And this is great to see it again. I was excited for you to do this today, and having seen it 3 weeks ago. So any other questions from the audience, please go ahead and get them in the chat pretty quickly. Steve, you nailed it, man. You're like right at 30 minutes.
Doing my best.
It's hard to do. I know it's hard to do.
There's a lot here. And truthfully, I left out a lot. But what I would like to say, Dustin, while you're waiting for other kinds of questions that may be coming in,
yeah,
this is not only free what we give away and what we do. It's not only being studied at Stanford University and other Florida International University. I go on and on at these different schools. But honestly, what I would say is we also will do a pilot program if you know of a school or an agency or an organization that would like more hand-holding and would like other kinds of benefits. Or if you have other kinds of questions for a family member, or you have anything that you just would like to know more about, please, here is my email address. Reach out. I'm more than happy to provide any kind of information, support, or knowledge that I can, not just with Identifor, but in this space as well.
Wonderful. Steve, thank you very much. Great tool. Amazing that it's free. That's extremely exciting. Everyone go check this out. Steve, appreciate it again. Thank you all for joining. And Steve, appreciate it. Good talking to you again. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everybody.